You're all set.
Excellent. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you all for being here tonight for the Ordinance Administration meeting for October 31st, 2022. Consistent with Chapter 107, the Acts of 2022, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time to participate when necessary. If you're calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or a device, there's a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options to be recognized to speak. I would like to say that we have co-chair, Jamie O'Hara, Council O'Hara. We have Council at Large Jeff Worthley filling in tonight with Frank Majoita. We have Tracy O'Neill, or Ward 3 Councilor, 2, sorry. Our Council President Val Gilman from Ward 4, and Suzanne Egan, our City Attorney, and always a pleasure to have representation from our Clerk's Office, Sherry White. So with those being said, I'd like to move on to the first order on the agenda, which would be the boards, committees, and commissions. And if we could bring in Matthew Murray. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Hello. Can you see me?
We can.
Okay, great.
And that,
Right. Hey,
So
how's
Matt-
everybody doing?
Matt, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be an alternate on the cemetery committee.
Well, I imagine you've all read my letter. Sandy Barry has been asking me to join the cemetery commission for a while, but that wasn't the first time I was asked. I think I was asked back in 2007. There was a vacancy. There was a perceived vacancy then, which turned out not to be a vacancy. Somebody called somebody to make sure they were interested or not, and they showed up at the very next meeting. So I've been involved with the city's cemeteries for 20 years now. I started back before the city started paying attention itself, maintaining First Parish on my own in 2002 and 2003, before the current cemetery commission, before the when there used to be just the historical cemetery committee. It was a offshoot of the historical commission at the time, and it had fewer teeth than it does today. Actually, as it happened, it was almost just and it was a lot of older folks who were involved but not able to do the work, so to speak, that Russ Hobbs and Rich and Kathy Clark have been able to do. So that was my end of it, and yeah, that's how my relationship with the city's cemeteries goes back 20 years. And like I said, Sandy has asked me to join repeatedly, and I finally found that I have the time to get more involved.
Excellent. Thank you, Matthew. Is there any counselor questions or comments from the committee? And we'll start with Jamie O'Hara.
Thank you. Matt, thank you very much for your willingness to step forward. I'm very familiar with First Baptist and Clark Cemetery, as myself and some of my employees were in there probably about 6-7 years ago when the grass was 4 feet tall and knotweed. Worked with Richard Clark at taking it down and cutting trees with the approval of the DPW and what have you. So extremely familiar with that cemetery, and I know reading your letter as far as extending your extension cord as far as you can go was quite the effort, and we wish you well going forward.
Thank you, Counselor.
All right. Councilor Worthley.
yes, thank you, Matt, for volunteering, not just now, but over the years. It's remarkable that you took the initiative to weed whack the cemetery on your own. First Burial, not the First Baptist, First Burial Cemetery. Two quick questions. First, as a little joke, I know your counterpart, you're the head of Democratic City Committee, your counterparts sometimes find votes in cemeteries. Just so you know, for the record, there are no votes there, and we won't find any there.
I've already registered them all.
Okay.
That was the reason I was in there in the first place. So, you know.
That's just to clear the weeds so you can see the epitaphs, right, and the gravestones. All kidding aside, though, thank you for doing this. If you were mayor for the day or king for the day, what would you do differently to better maintain our cemeteries?
First thing I would do is I would have every one of the trees on the abutting the MBTA removed, the MBTA train tracks. People care more about that cemetery when they're aware that it's there. And I never got in trouble for this, but when I started out there, I had the blessing of ignorance that I didn't know that there was a tree warden, and for some reason the trees that abut the area there are sacred in some way, and so I'd cleared a whole bunch of trees, especially not in the Clark's. I actually never touched the Clark side. I always thought that really until Rich and Kath got in there, I never thought that anything could be done with Clark as one person. But I cleared a bunch of brush and knotweed and mostly catbrier and bittersweet from along the railroad tracks. And I noticed that people started writing letters to the editor about First Parish because they, in their commute, noticed it was there for the first time in their commuting lives. So that's what I would do. That is easily the first thing I would do. The other thing I would do is I would definitely we have a weird way of funding our cemeteries in Gloucester. We have had in the past at occasional times we have had dedicated cemetery funds as other cities do. Currently there is a fund, but it's largely it's a very small fund that has been raised over time. There's also some awesome Gloucester grants and some money put in by the city and individuals, sort of like, it's a little bit like the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It's a little bit like listening to an NPR pledge drive. It comes from the money that exists now comes from a mishmash of public and private, whereas in other cities, public burials, and this may have changed since over time, the money that goes into public burials, of course, some of it's used to pay the people who open and close the holes, but more of it is set aside for, the term being perpetual care and such. Whereas we have generally run, and of course we're a larger city, we have 15 cemeteries, 10 are historic, which means they're not currently used, mostly not currently used. Every now and then somebody finds a small spot. And of course we have the 5 that are current, Dolivers, Seabrook, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not like, if you go up to say Ipswich, they have the one big cemetery, which actually connects to their historic burial ground, meaning it's all one property. And if you go up there, they have a, they have a workman's shed. There's a full-time staff that does that. It's part of their DPW, but we run ours from the DPW, which means that, we're at a great place right now with Mike Hale and his team, but creating a more, but that, Mike's not gonna, Mike won't be there in the year 2172, and hopefully the stones still will be. So we need a consistent plan that outlasts people of goodwill, like Jamie, your crew. I remember one year we had a group of roofers in there. It was great. They had everything down to, it looked like a golf course, and it was great. The trouble is that we need a consistent plan that outlives people of goodwill, because unfortunately, and I don't want to be the one to tell anybody this, but we don't live forever. In fact, that's the point of a cemetery. So those are the 2 things I would do. I'd have all those trees down, and I would come up with a consistent plan whether it needed to go before the city council or whether it just needed to be a standing policy with the DPW, or whether a board of trustees needed to be set up for each cemetery or all the cemeteries as a whole. That's what I would do.
Excellent.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Thank you, Sean. Councilor Nolan.
So I would like to say that I've spoken with Matt a lot on a lot of different topics, and one that really brings him up is history. And it may sound a little bit morbid, but cemetery history. And he's made his marks and spewed his bones there already on doing different things. I think Sandy, Barry, it will be so much appreciated to have Matthew work alongside with her as an alternate. It's a committee that over the last 4-5 years has really come from nowhere and just dominated the whole at-large commission to take charge of these cemeteries. And I think that Matt's going to be a great addition to this, and it's already a great committee. So I will be supporting this as well. And with that being said, Matt, I understand that you've already done your ethics test. You do need to be sworn in still.
Yeah, I've did the ethics, the conflict of interest thing. So yeah, I'm not. I have no intention of getting in a time machine, going back to the 17th century, and giving anybody the plum plots. I on behalf of the city, or the parish rather. At that point, it would not be. It would be the parishes that doling them out. Of course, back then it was, you get the spot where the ground thawed the first. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Matthew. With that being said, Councilor O'Hara, do we have a motion?
Ordinance Administration recommends that the City Council appoint Matthew Murray to the City-Owned Cemetery Advisory Committee, term ending February 14, 2025, and I so move.
Second.
That's on an alternate member.
Councilor O'Hara, Councilor Nolan.
Yes.
Could in the motion it should say that he's an alternate member.
That's what I said. It was for an alternate member. So we could change that, Jamie?
Yes, so we'll input alternate member after Matthew Murray.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Hara. So this will be a roll call vote, and we'll start with Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Yes. Thank you, Matt.
Councilor Nolan, yes. Matt, thank you very much. Your meeting will be next Tuesday in front of the full City Council, and we look forward to seeing you.
Okay, great. All right, that'll also be online, right? I still, so.
That is correct.
Wait, next Tuesday. Okay. All right. That's a busy Tuesday.
Excuse me, Counselor.
It's actually,
Hold on a second. It's Wednesday. Our meeting is on Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
There's a vote.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Council
All right.
President. Wednesday.
Okay. All right. Because I actually will be at Cairo's Auditorium on Tuesday waiting for the results to come in. Oh, it's like Tuesday. How am I going to just go around with my phone, until you need me? All right. Okay. So Wednesday. All right. Great. And Sherry, can you send me the notification on that?
yes, it'll be done this week, tomorrow or Thursday, tomorrow, Wednesday, you'll get it.
Perfect. All right. No rush. It's a week away, but thank you
Yeah.
very much.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Matthew. Have a great night.
All right. Great. I'm going to go make dinner.
Excellent. So
All right. See you guys.
next on the agenda, we have a memorandum from the General Counsel regarding proposed amendments to GCO Chapter 2 Administration Art 5 Boards and Commissions, Councils and Committees, Division 10, Section 2-508, Committee for the Arts. Suzanne Egan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Nolan. Yes, so at our last O&A meeting, there was a discussion about the proposed amendments, and there were some concerns about a number of them regarding the procedure for how the Committee of the Arts would operate. And so since that time, I have revised the proposed amendments, so that only section 2-509 are proposed to be amended, or is proposed to be amended, and that is to set the number of members at 7 with 2 alternates, and also to have the mayor as an ex officio member of the committee. And there is an elaboration over how the terms are staggered. And other than that, that's the complete amendments as proposed.
Excellent. Suzanne, thank you for your time. So essentially, the only thing that's being changed in this is the amount of members, the mayor stepping down as a voting member, going to ex officio. The powers in front of the council or placement of arts would still require to go through the council, and none of that has changed.
Exactly. So the requirement for a public hearing before the council is has not been changed at all.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Counselors, do we have any questions for this?
I still see the section 2-508 B. I still see should the mayor choose to accept the committee's recommendation after consultation with the Department of Public Works Director and the building inspector, he shall forward it to the city council for a public hearing and a vote. That's still struck from what I'm looking at.
So I submitted a memorandum with the revised amendment. It's dated October 26th, and it's in your revised O&A packet. And the memo specifically states that the changes to section 2-508B are taken out essentially. And so the only thing before the O&A tonight is the amendment to section 2-509.
That's exactly what I see in front of me on this order, is just the 2-509. The other amendments had been removed from the order that we're going to be voting on.
And there, I believe it's in a packet, October 31st, today's packet from the clerk.
So basically what I know that before it was on there was concerns about that. The information I have in front of me for our template tonight, it doesn't mention anything about taking away anything. It just changes section 2-509 on the amount of members and the mayor becoming ex officio.
Yes, and Councilor Harrod, would you like me to read that to you, or were you able to locate it?
No, I mean, I don't question Council Nolan, but that's not what I see in the packet dated October 31st. It's still struck.
So there's two. So included in the packet October 31st is the original memo. So yeah, what I'm doing to find it is to scroll up from the original memo. So it's directly under, if you look, I believe the way it is, it's number of page, there's page 4, which is the continuation of Matthew Murray's letter. Page 5 is the cemetery's own, and it's page 6 of the packet. And it's a memo dated October 26th. And page 7 shows what's before the council tonight.
Okay.
Do you see it?
I see it. I see
Okay.
it.
Okay.
All right, excellent. Council Worthley.
Yeah, 2 questions. So firstly, on Councilor Harris' point, I think, and Jamie, stop me if I'm wrong, I think what Jamie is seeing is he's not seeing it say the council will have a public hearing. It's just not addressing that issue in general. Is that the correct understanding? That there isn't language in here saying, I know he made a motion at the last meeting that got continued. His motion was to the council would be holding a public hearing on this. That's not in this language.
It is. So the existing language of this, of the Committee for the Arts, section 2-508, subsection B,
Mhm.
provides for the last sentence, it states, should the mayor choose to accept the committee's recommendation after consultation with the Department of Public Works Director and the building inspector, he shall forward it to the city council for a public hearing and
Okay,
vote.
got
So
it.
that language remains in the ordinance. The only revision to this is the number of members. And this was originally proposed by the mayor because he's revitalizing the Committee for the Arts, and there's such an increase of interest in members, people who want to be on this committee. So that's the increase to 7 members with 2 alternate members.
Okay. And Mr. Noel, Councilor Noel, if I may, the second question I have, where you're saying the mayor's becoming an ex officio non-voting member. According to Robert's Rules of Order, ex officio continues voting privileges and expectation that they're voting. So, and they're only on the committee as a result of the office. So it's not, and I think people think ex officio meaning no longer an official. It means because they're an official, as you know, Ms. Egan, he or she would be a voting member of the committee. So I don't want to sort of throw any water on this. I'm sure a lot of people put a lot of thought into this, but ex officio means that the mayor is a voting member. And does that then change the balance of 5, 7, 8 now? Does it change the makeup in a way that wasn't intended?
Council Worthley. Without Susan jumping in for a second, we did go through this back with the Magnolia Woods when Council Fonbiel had changed the ordinance to ex officio, and there's multiple
Definition.
or definitions of ex officio. One is that you're just there to listen, and one is that extent you still may be a voting member. We did go through this at a few different meetings. If Councilor Egan would like to chime in on that, that'd be excellent. But I do believe there's 2 different definitions, and we can define that it's a non-voting member in this matter.
Yes, that's correct. It can be defined as an ex officio, I believe. So I don't believe the city council follow, and I shouldn't say this, I'm not sure actually, whether or not the city council follows Robert Rules of Order to the T. But it is intended that as an ex officio member, the mayor would not be a voting member because it is an advisory committee to the mayor. So it would be redundant to also have the mayor as a voting member of a committee that advises that office. And that's why the change was made. And I think that if you read, one of the sort of legal concepts is to read a statute or ordinance so it makes sense. And so if you're reading this with this change in it and you're saying we want this to make sense, then we would say that it's an ex officio member and it's a non-voting member on an advisory committee.
So I agree, the mayor should probably not be voting on a committee that advises he or she, and that doesn't make sense. I would think that when we do follow Robert's Rules of Order, that's the definition I'm using. Not to be a stickler, I'm just looking up Robert's Rules of Order. Ex officio means a voting member. So I don't know if we need to just add in specifically, either take out ex officio or just non-voting or something to make sure it's as clear as you want it to be. Unless there's no one else who might down the road think ex officio means a voting member. And we can't really know who's going to be here to make those decisions later on.
If that's what the committee would prefer to clarify it, then I would think that would be acceptable, obviously. Yeah.
All right. So, haven't been through this before on other committees and going through ex officio versus, a vote in Robert's rules and other categories that put us in a situation. For this particular matter, I believe the ex officio would still be a non-voting member, which is most of our board and past votes in the last 6 years, 7 years, has been to change to ex officio on certain committees and boards where council as well doesn't have a vote. They have an overseeing part of this. If you would like to, add to the mayor or the designee shall be an ex officio member of the committee, which means a non-voting member, I have no problem with asking that. I just think that we have past precedent of not adding that and just moving on with the fact that ex officio for our terms means a non-voting member. And this is up for committee review. Councilor Hara.
No, that's fine. We can add that in the reading of the motion. I don't have an issue with that.
Not a problem. Councilor Worthley.
Yeah, the only thing, I agree with you, if there's precedent for one or the other, and I wasn't here for a long time, but the last sentence in that, what we're amending says the mayor in office shall continue his membership on the committee for the term for which he's elected. It kind of says the opposite of ex officio, non-voting member, if they're saying he or she's still on the committee for that period of time. So I just think for clarity's sake, it makes sense to say specifically, if that's what the mayor's asking for and the committee of the arts is asking for, just put non-voting member in there so that there's clarity on what we're really setting forward going forward.
That's not a problem myself. Councilor Egan, do you have any issues with that?
No, not at all.
All right, excellent. So this will be up for a councilor vote of the committee. We'll start with Councilor Hara.
Do we want to read the motion?
Well, the vote to add to the motion.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Do we need to put it in writing, or we just as an understanding? I would be voting yes on an amendment to add in
Yes. So
non-voting member.
we're voting yes to add this to the motion.
Okay, yes.
Excellent. And myself, yes. Councilor Hara, do we have a motion?
Ordinance Administration recommends that the City Council amend GCO Chapter 2 Administration Art 5 Boards and Commissions, Councils and Committees, Division 10, Section 2-509, Composition, Appointment, and Term of Members, as described in the document attached in General Counsel's revised memorandum of October 26, 2022, as follows. Section 2-509, Composition, Appointment, Terms of Members. The Committee for Arts shall consist of 7 members, 2 alternate members appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. All appointed members shall be residents of the city. The mayor or his designee shall be an ex officio non-voting member of the committee. The members shall serve the staggered 4-year terms initially, or in any instance where the committee is reconstituted, 1 member shall serve for a 1-year term. 2 members shall serve a 2-year term. 1 member shall serve a 3-year term. 1 member shall serve a 4-year term. The mayor in office shall continue his membership on the committee for the term for which he is elected. And I so move.
Second.
All righty. So this will be by roll call vote. We'll start with Councilor Hara.
Yes.
As amended as the prior amendment. Right.
Amendment.
Okay.
Councilor Hara.
Yes.
Councilor Worthley.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan, yes. So it's 3 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes to full council. All right. Thank you, Suzanne. Next up, we have a memorandum from CAO regarding the 2022 pilot surf program at Good Harbor Beach. So on the surf program, we have what looks like a very successful program this year. I think that the lifeguards spoke volumes at their appreciation awards on this. We have 0 complaints from the constituents or the DPW on this program. It seems to have been working out well. There's been a lot of communication as far as between the city staff and the Surfers Union on how it's going. I think that we're ready to move this to the full council for a vote to continue this as a regular ordinance. I don't think we need a sunset clause any longer on this. It is something that we can definitely revisit if there's an issue. But I think this year was a stellar year with 0 incidents that I'm aware of or the city. The administration has gone through their records The DPW has checked everything and worked with their lifeguard staff. They have no problems. I feel confident with moving this forward with the vote from O&A to go to the full council. Any discussion or comments? Council Worthley.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Nolan. I share your opinion that it was a success. I think that it makes sense to continue this in perpetuity. I do wonder, just from a city council process standpoint, is it just a question of this committee voting to continue it, or do we go back into the ordinance or the regulation? And if you notice, miscellaneous restrictions, number 2, surfing is prohibited at all public beaches, then we added an exception. Now do we say surfing is allowed? Do we have to kind of dig into the language a little bit more so that it's not just and he recommends we continue something, which is, you know, the language is going to say, except for a 1-year 2022 season pilot surfing program. I think we might need to we could probably do it in real time here, but to just strike out a few things and move it forward with specificity.
This is definitely something that we can do here at O&A. We can change from going through from another year and go in real time to send to the full council for
Okay.
their recommendations. I have followed up with all administration, city staff. They're willing and ready to go with this. So I think that changing a few words here and there is not going to be an issue if we decide to vote on that tonight and moving it full to council. So, that's where we're at right now.
If you just give me a minute, I can read it over and put a motion on that. It's not just continue it going forward. I think we need to just dig into some of the language a little bit. Would you like me to take a closer look at that real quickly?
Council Worthley, without objection, I have no problem.
Okay, just give me a minute. Okay,
Councilor Nolan,
Yes, Sherry.
just so you know, Courtney Hayes from the Cape Ann Surfers Union is on as an attendee.
Not a problem. I know she was out of town. We will bring her in shortly.
so just a quick question. Was the exception only for Good Harbor, or, I'm sorry?
This is for good.
Okay, so I was just suggest this, if we could, as a conversational point. Currently, surfing is prohibited at all public beaches between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And then just add, with the exception of Good Harbor Beach, and then add in all the language under there, take out the 1 year 2022. So I don't know if Sherry can help me wordsmith this a little bit. Surfing is prohibited at all public beaches between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. from Memorial Day to Labor Day, with the exception of Good Harbor Beach. And then where surfing is allowed, and then just adding all the extra language we put in. Obviously, the lifeguard was still the provision where they could call out surfers if they felt it was required.
Are you looking at the O&A motions template by any chance, Council Worthley?
No, I'm looking at the ordinance, actually. Hold on.
If you check your email.
I did look at it earlier. I'm sorry, I don't have it up at the same time. One moment.
Because it is a little bit different than what you just said.
Okay. Forgive me. I don't want to presume that you haven't done this work. So, okay, forgive me. I missed this part. It looks like you've done a lot of it already, or maybe all of it.
That's right. Yeah, I'll throw a leash out and listen.
Thank you. I might need more than a leash, maybe more like a life preserver.
I actually believe that the ordinance as written with our stricken words is actually really well. And it does take in consideration what you're saying, but I did want to give you the floor to.
Thank you.
Councilor
Thank you.
Harris, any questions or comments?
Thank you. It looks like it's good. I'm sorry.
No.
All right. On this situation, without any opposition from the council, from the committee, I'd like to pull in Courtney, who has been the backbone behind this and working to make sure things are all right. If you guys are all right with that, Sherry, can you pull her in?
Yep.
How you doing tonight, Courtney?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. You having fun on your vacation, your getaway?
Well, I'm in Ecuador working, so I am having some fun, but I'm also working. Thanks for doing this and thanks for all your support. Really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
I haven't seen, so I don't know if I've seen the amended language that you were just referring to. Is it essentially going to, is the language essentially going to remain the same as last summer, or have there been additional tweaks?
Everything's going to remain the same, except that we're not going to add a sunset clause to this.
Okay. My
gonna-
only question is, I was just looking at the calendar and I know that the way it was written last year refers to specific dates, which of course will be slightly different year to year. So next, the equivalent, I believe the language right now says, there's this, there's sort of 3 bullet points in the original pilot program. And the first one was to extend full surfing season until, I think it was Friday. Hold on, let me try to pull it up here.
We did change it to be specific, and with Stroke
Okay.
Memorial, we went to June 17th.
Right. So, I mean, we can stick with that. It's just the Friday next year will be June 16th. So I don't know if there's a workaround in terms of having something that's more evergreen in terms of, do you see what I'm saying?
I
Or
do.
just-
I think it's hard to pick a day
Yeah.
depending on which the week falls upon. I think we need to make a standard procedure.
Okay, so
yeah.
we're just gonna stick with the
Memorial
17th.
I think it makes sense to stick
Okay.
with June 17th, just because if we had said it's the first Friday of this month, or if it's
Yeah,
Memorial,
yeah.
then it gets a little bit
Yeah. Confusing.
But we are looking to move this as a steady ordinance and not anything with a sunset clause. So you guys did a great job last year. And is there anything else you'd like to add to this before I open up questions from the other counselors?
I don't think so.
All right. Counselor O'Hara, do you have anything to say to Courtney?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Counselor Berkeley?
I just want to say thank you, Courtney. I think the surfers are great stewards of the beach, and very glad to be able to make this work out for everybody.
Well, thank you so much for your support, Jeff and
Happy to.
Jamie and Sean and everyone else. Yeah, I mean, it's change is hard, but I'm glad everyone feels good about what happened last summer. And, we all want to just make sure this continues to be successful. And I think the surfing community really just, is committed to safety and just, a little bit of additional access at times when the beach is underutilized. So we're thrilled. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. And with that being said, Counselor O'Hara, do we have a motion?
Before we get into the motion, Councilor Nolan, as far as just discussing and looking at the template, verbiage related to Good Harbor Beach, I see it noted in the memorandum. SURF program memorandum from CAO Read 2022 pilot SURF program at Good Harbor Beach. But the only mention of Good Harbor Beach has been struck.
Right. Actually, if I may,
I do see what you're saying. We're not looking for any regulation changes at any of our other beaches other than Good Harbor Beach. If I may refer back to Suzanne Egan on this.
Yes. Can I think I can help you, but I would love to be able to help you more than I'm able to, but I'm not familiar with the regulation that you're looking to amend right now. But I can certainly answer any questions that you might have or try to.
All right, so I believe that the issue is that it does look a little weird, except for a 1 year 2020 season pilot surfing program at Good Harbor Beach, only that shall. It doesn't actually say that this is for Good Harbor Beach only.
Excuse me,
on that-
Counselor Nolan?
Go ahead, Sherry.
You can simply add it in the first line where it says surfing is prohibited at all public beaches except Good Harbor Beach.
Yes, that
So
would probably.
you can add that in as when you read the motion.
All right. Council O'Hara, does that help you out?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Ordinance Administration recommends that City Council amend beach and stage 4 park regulations as follows. 3 miscellaneous restrictions, H, boats launching and surfing. 1, boats launching and landing are prohibited at all public beaches between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. from Memorial Day to Labor Day without permission of the lifeguard. Surfing is prohibited at all public beaches between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. from June 17 to Labor Day without the permission of the lifeguard except Good Harbor Beach. Extending surfing hours allows surfing until 10 a.m. from June 17 through Labor Day, weekdays / non-holidays only, and surfing on bad weather days. Allow surfing on bad weather days with few or no swimmers in the water at lifeguards' discretions. Lifeguards can call surfers out of the water at any time or any reason. And I so move.
Second.
All right, and this will be by roll call vote, and we'll start with Council O'Hara,
Yes.
Council Worthley,
Yes.
Council Nolan, yes. So that passes to full council. In order of 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you all for that. That was great work. Thank you, Sherry.
One more thing, Counselor Nolan, I believe that will be advertised for public hearing for November 22nd.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask for a 3-minute recess. Anybody have any objections?
No.
No objection.
Excellent. We'll see
Can
guys
you
in-
hear me, Sean?
I can, Courtney.
Oh, sorry. So I just wanted to clarify. So the full council meeting will be November 22nd?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good time in Ecuador. Thank you for your good work.
Oh, thank you so much. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Council O'Hara, are you back? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the break, guys. So next up is number 4, CC number 2022-028 Worthley, to amend the GCO Chapter 5 Building and Builder Regulations, Article 4, Construction of City-Owned Buildings, by adding new section 5-62. Council Worthley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Nolan. So there's a couple of elements coming together at the same time. When I served on the council before, lots of times we would submit an order that's kind of like a goal, and the committee would do the legwork and kind of flesh it out. And I've learned that that's not really the way we're doing things as much now, where most councils want to see things sort of fully baked, as they say, before it gets to committee. So I just want to be really thoughtful of a different style that I'm learning as we go. Conceptually, I can't imagine there's a lot of councils who'd be opposed to what I've proposed. I'd be happy to read it and go through it. But I'd like to put it back to you, Councilor Nolan, for advice on, if we figure like there's a lot of digging through the weeds we need to do, I'd be happy to sort of continue this and work on it and come back with revisions if that's the case. But if we could have a general conversation so I get a sense from this committee if, from a goal setting standpoint, this is something we'd want to work on, I'd be happy to put more work into it if necessary. It's pretty straightforward, and for anybody who's listening or watching this later, ultimately I'm looking at making it a requirement that whenever the city invests in renovating or building a new building, that we require there to be a standard to be met that includes renewable energy. And I made that threshold pretty low so that if it's a school building or if it's the wastewater treatment plant, whatever it might be, and someone says, it doesn't make sense to do that because the upfront cost doesn't justify the savings, I put a 15-year time horizon to justify that math. In a residential level, for example, solar pays for itself in about 7 years. On a municipal level, because there's no write-offs on taxes, it's usually about 10 years to 11 years. I put 15 as a threshold. If it costs more than it takes for whatever that costs to be recouped in 15 years, that gives someone permission to say this, gives a council permission to say this is exempt. I've also excluded any public buildings in the historic district so that we're not looking at wind turbines and solar panels on City Hall, for example. It doesn't mean that the library can't do it, but they're not going to be required to do it, for example, because they're in the historic district historic district. Again, I want to be thoughtful about unintended consequences. We're not trying to make this a high burden. But I also think there's a lot of movement towards, at some point, requiring, incenting, cultivating a mindset where we ask residents and business owners through our zoning code eventually to be doing these sorts of things. And what I'd like to do is to take away the argument, why would you make, for example, the next Sam Park, the next Gloucester Crossing be required to get a major project permit to have these standards in it if the city itself doesn't hold itself to the same standard? And so this is, in my mind, step one. And frankly, if this council at some point says we're not interested, I think it'd be hard to pass any other legislation going forward that's a little more detailed for residents or business owners. So I would like to get some general feedback from this committee on the idea. If there's any specific areas you want me to look at, I have called a number of municipalities to get some input on this, ones that are a little more forward thinking than we have been. And I've also called, I just left a message today with 6 of the 7 members of the Clean Energy Commission to see if there's anything I've missed in this. So it's just a balance of, I want to be thoughtful and see if there's any details I missed. At the same time, it's a pretty generic piece of legislation. So I will lean to your expertise on how you expect to go forward with something like this.
All right, Councilor O'Hara, do you have any comments towards this?
No, I agree with, with what Councilor Worthley stated as far as doing the legwork before bringing this before council. I think the intent is excellent, but being having more specifics, I think is beneficial to the legislation, but also to the request that this be read by someone going forward as far as what is expected, because net zero is quite an achievement, and there are many different levels of net zero, not only wind, solar, water, paper. It goes on and on. So I think to get the biggest bang for the buck out of, I think, what Council Worthley's intent is, and for the benefit of the city long term, I think being more specific will be beneficial. So I would agree with what Council Worthley as far as a continuance on this and working on again more detail.
Excellent. Council Worthley, what you're looking for is simply modern and things we have to work with. It's not necessarily when you were a council before versus now and how we put things forward. I believe that everybody does their footwork and everybody looks into things, and before it comes to council, we're not asking for someone to bring 100% when they come to committee level. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. It's a big picture. I'm sure you're going to be looking forward to some meetings with Greg Catamatori in the administration. I think that this is all stuff that is very much possible and should be thought of, and it's a great forward-thinking idea. However, I think that we could, all three of us and anybody else that is on the call tonight, compile some questions to work with the administration to bring it back, so it's not just this is what we want to do. We have a list 15 years payback, but how can we achieve this? What's the goal? Is it just going to be solar? Is it going to be wind? And how do we regulate it? And how can we work with the existing buildings that we have versus the new ones that are basically already being built? Maybe a little tougher too. But I do share your vision on this. And I think that we do have some questions that we need to compile for the administration. And I think that each one of us as counselors should be working on questions of our own for them. Jeff, obviously this is your order and you're going to run with this. I am going to ask that we put this off for 1 month. If we could do that, Sherry, you can give us the next date.
1 month would be December 5th.
Excellent. Council Worthley, are you right with that?
Certainly. First of all, I want to be very grateful and express my gratitude, Councilor Nolan. This got referred from the council 5 days ago, and the fact that you got it on your ONA committee meeting tonight, I'm very appreciative of you putting on as early as you have. Putting it out a month gives me some time. What I'd like to ask is if there's a mechanism for, again, keeping open meeting laws in mind, but if there's a mechanism for individual councilors either just to email me so I can keep track of them. Certainly, anybody can ask any questions they want at any time. But if I could maybe, to be thoughtful of city staff time, compile a list of questions to have Greg Catamatori or the Clean Energy Commission answer sort of in one fell swoop, that might be helpful. I don't know what the precedent is at this committee, but I'd be happy to coordinate that. I see Suzanne has put a video on, usually a precursor to her asking a question or sharing some wisdom with us.
Hopefully,
Yeah, so
questions don't count as breaking open meeting law if there's no answers given.
Understood.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just jump in here for a second. So in terms of working on a proposed ordinance, my suggestion would be, instead of sending the questions to another counselor, but to send them to the clerk, who can then distribute them, because that, I think what that does is it stops any question whatsoever of any discussion outside of a meeting. So if it could be sent to the clerk, and the clerk can then send those questions out as a group, and then nobody will respond to anybody else. So I think that that's helpful for
Thank you.
meeting law and transparency.
Appreciate that input.
Thank you, Suzanne. So we will continue this, and
I have one more thing.
1 second, Jeff. The recommendation would be that we send all our questions to the clerk's office, and she can distribute them through the administration and the rest of the council without any ideas of someone doing something dumb.
Perfect. So I just want to add a couple of things. Councilor Harry, you mentioned net zero. The requirement in this ordinance is not to get to net zero, but if a building got to net zero, that any additional, and again, don't know the mechanism, but electricity or savings would be owned by the city. And that would mean, if, for example, if there's a school building that got to net zero, which would be hard to do, right? If it got to net zero, then the question of who owns that resource would be the city. And the reason why I picked that, at least initially, is loan authorizations for school buildings come through the city. So if the general fund is financing a taxpayer initiative for a school building, even though the school runs the building, we would then see that benefit be distributed back in a way for all taxpayers or the city to benefit from it. That was the thing of it. Net zero is hard, but once they get there, if there's no additional cost for that building from that electricity, then that's shared with the city. So I like this process. I've got lots of questions too. So we'll be submitting some, and I welcome all your thoughts. Of course, people can ask questions at any point, but it'd be helpful to get them earlier so that in a month we have something to work with. Thank you for the general support on this.
Excellent. So I believe that ends the O&A meeting. I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
All right, and this is by roll call vote. We'll start with Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Worthley. Is that a yes, Jeff? We can't hear you. Give us thumbs up. I'm assuming he's saying yes.
yes, sorry, thank you.
All right, Councilor Nolan, yes. So this meeting's over. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Val. Everybody else is offline, but everybody have a great night. Hopefully you get some trick-or-treaters, and everybody stay safe. Thank you all, and have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Sherry.
Bye-bye.